Pat Robertson answered some viewer emails on his show, The 700 Club, yesterday, and he gave a terrible answer to a question about dead babies.
A coworker confronted me in the break room and said she can't believe in a God who let her baby of 3 years old die, suffering a long battle in and out of hospitals while he heals other children. She asked me, why did God allow my baby to die? I told her that I didn't know why her child died, but God sees the whole picture. We see only in part. What else can I say?
Well, what you have to understand, I think, in the Old Testament, it was like God's responsible for everything. He brings out the bad, he brings out the good, he's responsible for everything. More and more in the New Testament era, we have come to realize that human beings have an agency, they have responsibility. And a lot of things happen because of what humans do. Yeah. I mean, people die in hospitals because of medical malpractice. Somebody cuts the wrong thing and somebody dies. It happens all the time. A nurse gives a patient the wrong medicine. Well, you going to blame that on God? That's not God. That's people who are making mistakes. Now, as far as God's concerned, he knows the end from the beginning, and he sees a little baby, and that little baby could grow up to be Adolf Hitler. He could grow up to be Joseph Stalin. He could grow up to be some serial killer, or he could go up to die of a hideous disease. God sees all that. And for that life to be terminated while he's a baby, he's going to be with God forever in heaven. So that isn't a bad thing.
You gotta stop, man. You gotta stop, you old buffoon. You just make an ass of yourself every single day on TV. Is that what a mother who lost her child wants to hear? Is that consoling? And, sometimes when you make that argument, some people would say, well, it doesn't matter if it's consoling. Is it true or not? Yeah, but on that point, too, it's untrue! I like how he starts out by saying, well, the idea used to be God is responsible for everything. But in the New Testament, what we learned is God's not responsible for everything. People are responsible for the bad. And God's responsible for the good. Oh, well, isn't that fucking lovely? And isn't that convenient? So whenever something good happens, thank you, God, we love you, you did the right thing. Whenever something bad happens, fuck, why did I screw up so bad? So it's a rigged game. He gets praised no matter what. So the empirical reality doesn't matter. If good happens, it's because of him. If bad happens, it's not because of him. What, was he on a fucking coffee break? Well, I mean, what's going on here? Notice, again, it's a rigged game, which shows you that there's no logic involved here. There's no objective standards. There's no empiricism. It's just, don't think if something bad happens, blame yourself. If something good happens, give credit to God. But then he leaves that argument and he contradicts himself because he says, well, actually, no, God knows everything and is omnipotent, all-knowing, is aware of all, right? And that is the standard understanding, is God's aware of everything and can do anything. It's God we're talking about here. So wait, Pat, which is it? You just said God is only responsible for the good, not responsible for the bad, and then you changed it to, no, God is responsible for everything, and maybe your baby was Hitler. Leave it to Pat Robertson to not only be offensive and stupid, but also, within a clip that's a minute and a half long, he contradicts himself. It's beyond me how anybody in the United States of America or anywhere could still watch this guy and go, yeah, I need to get some advice. Sweet Jesus, man, you just told a grieving mother who lost her kid that maybe your kid was the next Hitler, maybe your kid was the next Stalin, so it's not bad. God works in mysterious ways. If that God really does exist, if that God exists of, I'm going to let a tsunami wipe out this place, I'm going to do an earthquake in that place, I'm going to, do an economic disaster, going to have extreme poverty in many pockets throughout the world, I'm going to have incredible sickness and Ebola and diseases and viruses and all these problems. If that God exists, fuck that God. That God can suck my balls right here, these balls, because that God is not moral, is not ethical. The only way you can believe that is if you say, by definition, no matter what God does, it is moral. So throw out all your rules about murder being wrong and, assault being wrong and all this stuff, rape being wrong. unless you throw that paradigm out and say whatever God says is right, that's the only way you could think that. And what kind of a group of people is okay under any circumstance with those things being moral, where you flip the script and say murder is moral, rape is moral, assault is moral? Those are some backwards thinking motherfuckers. Those are some illogical motherfuckers. And what you find is that if somebody's religious, they have to twist themselves in a pretzel to try to explain away all the bad in the world and all the bad in their holy books. Here's an idea. How about you don't try to explain away anything and you just accept the obvious reality that your God isn't real and your holy books aren't real? Sorry, not sorry at all.